How did a reserved father-in-law turn into a joke at his own daughter's wedding dinner, only to fade out of everyone's plans that very same night? Why did one careless toast expose exactly who believed I was powerless, expendable, and already written off? This is how I kept smiling, stayed composed, and let the structures they trusted determine what came next. Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. The chandeliers reflected off crystal stemware like small fires suspended in midair. I stood near the back wall of the banquet hall, watching 300 guests settle into their seats. The room smelled like expensive cologne and fresh roses. Every surface gleamed. Every napkin sat folded into perfect triangles. I wore a navy suit, simple and clean, no pocket square, no cufflinks. Around me, men wore watches that cost more than my first car. Women laughed with their heads tilted back, showing off necklaces that caught the light. This was Jenna's world now, not mine. I accepted that. My daughter sat at the head table in white silk that probably cost $15,000. Her hair was pinned up with small diamonds woven through it. She looked beautiful. She looked happy. That mattered more than anything else in this room. Lucas sat beside her. 31 years old, broad shoulders, perfect teeth, hair styled with something that made it look effortlessly messy. He wore a custom tuxedo with his initials stitched inside the jacket. I'd seen him show that detail to 3 different people already. His father owned a chain of luxury hotels. Lucas himself ran a venture-backed real estate development company. He talked about disruption and legacy and building empires. I built guidance systems for spacecraft. 32 years at the same aerospace firm. The work was precise, quiet, invisible to most people. When a satellite adjusted its orbit perfectly, nobody thought about the engineer who designed the algorithm. That suited me fine. Margaret, my ex-wife, sat 2 tables away. She wore emerald green and talked animatedly with a woman I didn't recognize. We'd been divorced for 6 years. It ended without drama. We simply stopped fitting together. She remarried within 18 months to a man who sold commercial insurance and played golf every Sunday. I stayed single. Neither choice was wrong. The servers moved between tables like synchronized swimmers. Plates appeared and disappeared. Wine glasses refilled themselves. Someone at the next table laughed too loudly at something that wasn't funny. The room had that electric hum of 300 people trying to have a good time all at once. Lucas rose abruptly. He lifted his champagne glass and tapped it with a fork. The sound sliced through the noise. Conversations fell silent in waves spreading outward from the head table. 300 faces turned toward him. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," Lucas said. His voice carried easily. He'd practiced this. "Jenna and I are so grateful. This is the beginning of something incredible." People smiled. A few raised their glasses already. "But I want to talk about fathers-in-law," Lucas continued. His smile widened. "Because there are 2 kinds, right? There are useful fathers-in-law, the ones who open doors, who make calls, who understand how the world actually works, the ones who add value." He paused. The room stayed quiet. "And then there are the other kind." His eyes flicked toward me for half a second. "The ones who are just there, taking up space, outdated, finished, the kind who retired into irrelevance 20 years ago and don't even know it." A few uncomfortable laughs rippled through the crowd. Someone coughed. Lucas kept smiling. "Now, I'm lucky," he said, raising his glass higher, "because I married into a family with potential. And Jenna? She gets it. She understands where we're going. She's not stuck in the past like some people." The laughter came louder this time. Not from everyone, maybe 50 people. But enough. Enough to make it real. I looked at Jenna. She was laughing. Not loudly, not meanly, but she was laughing. Her hand covered her mouth, and her shoulders shook slightly. She glanced at Lucas with something like pride. "So here's to the useful ones," Lucas finished. "And to everyone else. Well, thanks for showing up, I guess." He drank. The room erupted in applause and laughter. People clinked glasses. Someone near the front shouted something supportive. The moment expanded and filled the space completely. I smiled. I nodded once. I didn't move. A woman at the table next to mine leaned toward her husband. I heard her whisper, "That went too far." Her husband shrugged. "Lucas is just confident. That's how he got where he is." The servers brought out dessert. Conversations resumed. The moment dissolved into the background noise of celebration. But something had shifted, not in the room, in me. I stayed for another hour. I shook hands. I accepted congratulations. I told people the ceremony was beautiful. I meant it. Jenna looked happy. That still mattered. When I left, nobody noticed. I drove home on empty highways. The city lights fell behind me. My house sat 20 minutes outside the metropolitan core, tucked between pine trees that swayed in the wind. It was a small place. 2 bedrooms, 1 office, a garage I'd converted into a workshop. The mortgage was paid off 8 years ago. Inside, I poured myself 2 fingers of whiskey and sat in my office. The room smelled like old books and machine oil. My degrees hung on one wall, my certifications on another. A photo of Jenna at age 7 sat on my desk. She was missing her front teeth and holding a model rocket we'd built together. I thought about Lucas's toast. Not the words themselves, the laughter, the applause, the easy agreement. This wasn't the first time. 6 months ago, at an engagement dinner, Lucas had introduced me to his business partner. "This is Quinn," he'd said. Jenna's dad. He used to work in aerospace. Old school stuff. Satellites and whatever. Not exactly cutting edge anymore. His partner had smiled politely and moved on. 3 months ago, at a family brunch, Lucas had interrupted a conversation I was having with Margaret's new husband about interest rates. "Don't bore him with that stuff, Quinn. Nobody cares about your generation's financial theories. The game changed. You wouldn't understand." Margaret had laughed nervously and changed the subject. 2 months ago, Jenna had called me from her new apartment. "Dad, Lucas says we should probably manage our own finances going forward. You know, without input from, well, people who aren't really in touch with modern investment strategies." I'd said that made sense. She was an adult. She should make her own decisions. Each moment had felt small, isolated, easy to dismiss. Tonight made them into a pattern. I opened my laptop and checked my email. There was a message from Evan Calder, my estate attorney. We'd worked together for 15 years. He handled my investments, my property transfers, my will. He was meticulous and expensive and worth every dollar. The email was brief. "Quarterly review scheduled for Thursday. Let me know if you need to reschedule." I replied immediately. "Keep the appointment. I have questions." I finished my whiskey and went to bed. Sleep came easily. I'd learned a long time ago not to lie awake worrying about things I couldn't change in the dark. The next morning, my phone buzzed while I was making coffee. A text message from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey Quinn, great wedding last night. Lucas really knows how to keep things entertaining. That toast was hilarious. You're a good sport." I deleted it. Another message arrived 10 minutes later. This one from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in 3 years. "Saw the wedding pics online. Lucas seems like a real go-getter. Glad Jenna found someone who can take care of things." I didn't respond. At noon, Jenna called. "Hi, Dad." Her voice sounded bright. Too bright. "How are you feeling today?" "Fine," I said, tired. "Listen, about last night." She trailed off. "Lucas didn't mean anything by that toast. He was just being funny. You know how he is?" "I know how he is," I agreed. "He likes you, Dad, really. He just has a different communication style. More direct, more modern." "Mm-hmm. You're not upset, are you?" I paused. Not because I was deciding what to say, because I was deciding whether to say it yet. "No," I told her. "I'm not upset." "Good. Because we were thinking about having a little celebration next month. Just family, low-key. Lucas wants to make sure everyone feels included going forward." "That sounds nice." "Great. I'll send you the details." She hung up quickly. I stood in my kitchen holding the phone. Outside, a crow landed on my fence and cawed twice before flying away. I spent the afternoon in my workshop. I had a project I'd been working on for 6 months. A miniature turbine engine. Completely impractical. Just something to keep my hands busy. I machined parts. I assembled. I tested. The work required focus, precision, patience. My phone buzzed again around 5. Another text. This one from Grant Reed, my former program manager at the aerospace firm. "Heard about the wedding. Congratulations. Coffee next week?" Grant was 58. He'd run the satellite navigation division for 12 years. He knew how to read situations, how to see what people weren't saying. I texted back, "Tuesday morning, usual place." He responded immediately. "See you then." I cleaned my tools and went inside. Margaret called while I was heating up leftover soup. "Quinn, it's me." "Hi, Margaret." "Listen, I wanted to check in. About last night." Her voice had that careful quality she used when she was trying to manage something. "Lucas's toast was, well, it was awkward." "It was honest," I said. "What?" "He said what he thinks. That's not awkward. That's clear." She was quiet for a moment. You're not going to make a scene, are you? When have I ever made a scene? I just want to make sure Jenna's happy. She loves Lucas. This is important to her. I know it is. So we're all going to be adults about this? I've always been an adult, Margaret. You know what I mean. Yes, I said. I know what you mean. She hung up. I finished my soup. The house felt very quiet. Late that night, I sat in my office again. I opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. Inside were property deeds, investment statements, and estate documents. I'd spent 32 years saving carefully, living below my means, investing in things that held value. On paper, I was worth more than most people knew, more than Jenna knew, more than Margaret knew, certainly more than Lucas knew. I'd never felt the need to advertise it. Money was a tool, not an identity. But tools had uses. I made a list, not of grievances, of facts. Fact 1, Lucas believed I was irrelevant. Fact 2, Jenna agreed with him, or at least didn't disagree. Fact 3, they expected access to resources they thought were negligible. Fact 4, they were planning a future that included assumptions about my compliance. I circled a date on my calendar, 3 weeks away, the family celebration Jenna had mentioned. Then I closed the folder and went to bed. Tuesday morning arrived cold and gray. I met Grant at a coffee shop downtown. It was the kind of place with exposed brick and reclaimed wood tables. Young people typed on laptops. Someone was playing acoustic guitar in the corner. Grant was already there when I arrived. He wore a wool sweater and jeans. His beard had more gray than the last time I'd seen him. He stood and shook my hand. Quinn, good to see you. You too. We sat. A waitress brought coffee without asking. We'd been coming here for years. So, Grant said, your daughter got married. She did. Lucas Harrow. I looked him up. Real estate developer. Venture capital backing. Big social media presence. That's him. Grant sipped his coffee. I also heard about his toast. Word travels fast. Someone posted a video. It made the rounds. He set his cup down carefully. Want to tell me what you're thinking? I looked at him. Grant had a way of asking questions that got to the center of things. No dancing around, no false politeness. I'm thinking about distance, I said. Physical or emotional? Both. He nodded slowly. You've been underestimated before. I've seen how you handle it. This is different. Because it's family. Because it's my daughter. Grant leaned back in his chair. What did she do when he made the toast? She laughed. Ah. We sat in silence for a minute. The guitar player finished a song. Someone at the next table closed their laptop with a loud snap. You remember the Meridian Project? Grant asked. I nodded. The Meridian Project had been a disaster in the making. A satellite system with flawed guidance algorithms. 3 different teams had signed off on it. Everyone was confident. Everyone except me. I'd written a report outlining the problems. I'd been ignored. 6 months later, the first satellite failed exactly as I'd predicted. They brought me in to fix it. I did. Nobody apologized. You didn't argue, Grant continued. You didn't make speeches. You just documented everything and waited. Arguing wastes time. So what are you documenting now? I smiled slightly. Everything that matters. Grant finished his coffee. I'm guessing you have a meeting with Evan Calder this week. Thursday. Good. Evan's thorough. Whatever you're planning, he'll make sure it's airtight. That's the idea. And after that? After that, I disappear? Grant raised his eyebrows. Literally? 3,000 kilometers. Maybe more. He whistled softly. You've been thinking about this for a while. I've been preparing for possibilities. Lucas just clarified which one was most likely. Does Jenna know? Not yet. She'll find out when it matters. Grant stood and put on his jacket. For what it's worth, you've earned the right to do whatever you want. You don't owe anyone an explanation. I know, but it's still going to hurt her. Yes, I said. It is. He left. I stayed and ordered another coffee. Outside, rain started to fall. People rushed past the window with their coats pulled tight. My phone buzzed, a text from Jenna. Dad, can we talk tonight? Lucas has some ideas he wants to run by you, financial stuff. He thinks you might have some useful input after all. I stared at the message for a long time. Useful input. 2 days ago, I'd been wasted space. Now I was potentially useful, I texted back. I have plans tonight. Maybe another time. Her response came immediately. Oh, okay, no problem. We'll figure something out. I finished my coffee and drove to the bank. The branch was quiet. Marble floors, hushed voices. I'd been banking here for 20 years. The manager, a woman named Patricia who wore reading glasses on a chain, greeted me at the door. "Mr. Oren, good to see you. Do you have an appointment?" "I need to discuss some transfers." "Of course. Let me get Asher." Asher was a vice president. Mid-40s, efficient, discreet. He led me to a private office with leather chairs and a view of the parking lot. "What can I do for you today?" he asked. I pulled out a list. "I need to liquidate 3 accounts and consolidate them into a single offshore structure. I also need to update my beneficiary designations." He glanced at the list. His expression didn't change. "These are significant assets." "Yes." "May I ask the reason for the consolidation?" "Estate planning." He nodded. "And the beneficiary changes?" "I'm removing my daughter. Temporarily." His pen paused over his notepad. "Temporarily?" "Until certain conditions are met. My attorney will provide the documentation." "I see." He made notes. "This will take approximately 2 weeks to process. We'll need your signature on several forms." "That's fine." "And you're certain about this?" "These changes can be reversed, but it's simpler to get it right the first time." "I'm certain." He scheduled a follow-up appointment and walked me out. The rain had stopped. Puddles reflected the gray sky. I drove home and spent the afternoon in my office. I pulled up property listings, not local ones, international. I'd been researching for months. Norway, New Zealand, Portugal. Places where English was common, but distance was guaranteed. I bookmarked 3 possibilities, one in Bergen, one in Queenstown, one in the Algarve. I'd visit all 3 before deciding. My phone rang. Margaret. "Jenna called me," she said without preamble. She said, "You're being distant." "I'm always distant. That's what Lucas said I am." "Don't be difficult, Quinn. She's trying to include you." She laughed. "What?" "At the wedding, during the toast." She laughed. Margaret sighed. She didn't mean anything by it. She was just going along with the moment. "You're being too sensitive." "Maybe." "Lucas is good for her. He's ambitious. He's going places. You should support that." "I do support it, from wherever I choose to be." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm going to make some changes, Margaret. Don't be surprised." "Changes like what?" "You'll find out." I hung up. She called back immediately. I didn't answer. That night, I sat on my back porch with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders. The stars were clear for the first time in weeks. I found Orion, Cassiopeia, the Pleiades. I'd spent 30 years helping machines navigate by these stars. Now I'd use them to navigate myself. A message arrived from Evan. "Still on for Thursday? I have some documents ready for your review," I replied. "See you then." The temperature dropped. I went inside and locked the door. Thursday afternoon, I drove to Evan Calder's office. It was located in a converted brownstone downtown. Tasteful, expensive, anonymous. Evan met me in the lobby. He was 56, thin, with wire-rimmed glasses and a perfectly trimmed beard. He wore a gray suit that probably cost $3,000. We shook hands. "Quinn, right on time." "Always." He led me to a conference room on the 3rd floor. Papers were stacked neatly on the mahogany table. 2 laptops sat open. A pot of coffee waited on the credenza. "I reviewed everything," Evan said, sitting down. "Based on our last conversation, I've prepared several documents for your consideration." He slid a folder across the table. "This is your current estate structure. As you know, your assets are distributed across various accounts, properties, and trusts. Your daughter is currently listed as the primary beneficiary on everything." I nodded. "These documents," he tapped another folder, "create a new structure, a revocable trust with specific conditions for distribution. Your daughter remains a beneficiary, but access is delayed and conditional." "Conditional on what?" "That's up to you. The language can specify time periods, life events, behavioral standards, whatever you deem appropriate." "What would you recommend?" Evan leaned back. "In situations like this, I usually recommend a time-based approach. 5 years, 10 years, long enough for circumstances to change, for people to mature, for consequences to become clear. And in the meantime, the trust is managed by a professional fiduciary, someone who has no emotional stake in the outcome. They follow the instructions you provide, nothing more, nothing less." I poured myself coffee. "What about the properties?" "You own 3 properties outright, your primary residence, a rental property in the city, and a small cabin upstate. The cabin is worth approximately $400,000. The rental property is worth $750,000. Your primary residence is worth approximately $1.2 million. "I want to sell the rental property." Any particular reason? Liquidity. I'm planning to relocate. Evan made a note. Where to? Haven't decided yet. Somewhere far. Far as in another state or far as in another country? Country. He didn't react. That changes some things. We'll need to consider tax implications, residency requirements, international estate laws, but it's all manageable. He pulled out another document. This is a power of attorney revocation. Currently, your daughter holds medical and financial power of attorney. This removes those designations. Who replaces her? I can serve in that capacity if you'd like, or we can designate a professional trustee. You, I said. He nodded and made another note. There's one more thing, I said. The cabin. I want to transfer it out of the trust, make it unavailable entirely. To whom would you transfer it? A conservation organization, something that protects land. I'll research options. Evan looked at me over his glasses. You're dismantling access completely. I'm creating boundaries. Fair enough? He gathered the papers. I'll prepare the final documents. You'll need to sign in the presence of a notary. I can arrange that here next week. How long before everything is finalized? 2 weeks, maybe 3. Some of the international components take time. That works. He closed his laptop. Quinn, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've seen a lot of family situations. This kind of comprehensive restructuring, it usually comes after something significant. It did. Want to tell me what? I told him about the wedding, about the toast, about Jenna's laughter. I kept my voice even, factual. No emotion. When I finished, Evan was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry, he said finally. Don't be. It's clarifying. Will you tell her before you leave? I'll tell her after the documents are final, not before. She'll be angry. Probably. You're okay with that? I'm okay with a lot of things I wasn't okay with before. He walked me to the door. I'll call you when everything's ready. I drove home through afternoon traffic. The sky was turning orange and purple. Rush hour clogged the highways. I took side streets. At home, I made dinner. Grilled chicken, steamed vegetables, brown rice, simple food. I ate slowly, focusing on each bite. My phone rang. Lucas. I stared at the screen. He'd never called me before. Always texted through Jenna. I answered. Hello. Quinn. Hey man, it's Lucas. I know. Listen, I wanted to reach out. Clear the air. About the wedding toast. Okay. I was joking around. You know how it is. Wedding energy, champagne. Everyone expects the groom to be entertaining. I didn't mean anything personal. I understand. Good. Good. Because Jenna was worried you might have taken it the wrong way. And that's not what we want. We want you to feel included. Part of the team. The team? Yeah. Family team. We're all on the same side here. I let the silence stretch. Anyway, Lucas continued, we're having that little celebration in a couple weeks. Just family, some close friends. We want you there. We want to talk about the future, about opportunities, about how we can all support each other. Support each other. Exactly. Because here's the thing, Quinn. I've been thinking. You have experience. You have knowledge. You might actually be able to contribute more than I initially thought. Jenna mentioned you've done pretty well for yourself financially. Smart investments, property, that kind of thing. Did she? Yeah, and I respect that. I respect hustle, even if it's old school hustle. So I'm thinking maybe we can find ways to collaborate, pool resources, leverage what you've built into something bigger. I see. So you'll come to the celebration? I'll think about it. Great. I'll have Jenna send you the details. This is going to be good, man. Fresh start. New chapter. He hung up. I sat holding the phone. Outside, night fell completely. The stars came out one by one. Fresh start. New chapter. He had no idea how right he was. The next 2 weeks moved like water through my hands. Days blurred together. I worked in my shop. I answered emails. I avoided calls from Jenna. The documents were ready on schedule. Evan called on a Tuesday morning. Everything's prepared. Can you come in Friday afternoon? Yes. Bring identification. We'll have a notary present. Friday arrived cold and sunny. I drove to Evan's office. The conference room was set up with papers arranged in neat stacks. A notary sat at the far end of the table, a woman in her 60s with reading glasses and a professional smile. Evan walked me through each document. The trust, the power of attorney revocations, the property transfers, the beneficiary changes. Initial here, sign here, date here. I worked through the stack methodically. Each signature felt deliberate, final. The notary stamped each document with precise movements. She barely spoke, just watched my hands and verified my identity. "That's everything," Evan said finally. "As of this moment, the new structure is in effect." "How long until the changes are visible?" "Depends on what you mean by visible. The legal structure is active now, but unless someone specifically checks public records or requests account information, they won't know anything has changed." "Good. When do you plan to tell your daughter?" "Tomorrow night, at their celebration." Evan frowned. "You're going to tell her in front of people?" "I'm going to tell them all at once. Lucas wanted everyone on the same team. He's going to get exactly that." "Quinn, I've thought about this, Evan. This is how it needs to happen." He didn't argue. He just gathered the documents and locked them in a file cabinet. I went home and packed a bag, not for a trip, just preparation, organization. I folded clothes, I sorted papers, I made lists. That night, Jenna called. "Dad, you're still coming tomorrow, right?" "Yes." "Great. Lucas is really excited. He has some ideas he wants to share with everyone about investments and partnerships and future planning." "I'm sure he does." "And Dad, please don't be weird about the toast thing." Lucas apologized. "It's over. We're moving forward." "Moving forward," I echoed. "Exactly. See you tomorrow, 6 o'clock. Rooftop event space downtown. The one with the city views." "I'll be there." "Love you, Dad." She hung up before I could respond. I spent Saturday preparing. I showered. I dressed in a dark suit, charcoal gray, well-tailored. I wore a simple watch. No jewelry, no statement pieces. Just clean lines and quiet confidence. I arrived at the event space at exactly 6 o'clock. It was on the 14th floor of a modern building. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city stretching out in every direction. String lights hung from the ceiling. Tables held champagne and expensive appetizers. 20 people were already there. Family, close friends, Lucas's business partners. Everyone was dressed like they were closing deals or attending a gala. Jenna saw me first. She smiled and waved. "Dad, you made it." She hugged me. She smelled like expensive perfume and hairspray. Lucas appeared beside her. He gripped my shoulder. "Quinn, good to see you, man. Glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it." Margaret stood near the windows talking to her husband. She glanced at me once, then looked away. I didn't approach. Lucas clinked a glass. "All right, everyone, let's gather around. I want to talk about something important." People formed a loose circle. Champagne glasses caught the light. The city glowed below us. "So," Lucas began, "this celebration is about more than just the wedding. It's about family. It's about building something together. Jenna and I have been talking, and we realized we have resources we haven't fully utilized. Connections, knowledge, capital." He looked directly at me. "And that includes Quinn. I'll be honest, I didn't fully appreciate what he brings to the table. But Jenna helped me see that he's been quietly successful. Smart investments, property, savings, all that good stuff." A few people nodded. Someone murmured agreement. "So here's what we're proposing," Lucas continued. "A family investment consortium. We pool resources. We leverage our combined capital into bigger opportunities. Real estate development, tech startups, international markets. Things that require scale." He pulled out a folder. "I've prepared a prospectus. Basic terms. Everyone contributes according to their capacity. Returns are distributed proportionally. It's a win-win." He handed the folder to someone near him. It started moving around the circle. "Quinn," Lucas said, turning to me fully, "we'd love to have you as a founding member. Your contribution would be significant, and in return, you'd be part of something bigger than anything you could do alone." Everyone was looking at me now. I smiled. "That's generous, Lucas. Really." "So you're in?" "Actually, I have some news of my own." The room got quieter. "I'm relocating," I said calmly. 3,000 kilometers away, maybe more. I haven't finalized the location yet, but I'm exploring options in Northern Europe. Possibly New Zealand, somewhere with clean air and low population density. Jenna's smile faltered. "What?" "I'm leaving. Probably within the next month." "But why?" "Because I want to. Because I've earned the right to live wherever I choose." Lucas frowned. "Okay. But that doesn't mean you can't participate in the consortium. We can set up remote access, video calls. You don't have to be here physically." "I'm not participating," I said. The silence was complete now. "I've also restructured my estate," I continued. "As of last Friday, my assets are held in a trust with specific conditions, Access is delayed. Beneficiaries are updated. Distributions are conditional. Jenna's face went pale. Dad, what are you talking about? I'm talking about boundaries, about independence, about making sure nobody assumes they have access to things that aren't theirs. Lucas stepped forward. Hold on. You're saying you're cutting Jenna out? I'm saying access is conditional. She's still a beneficiary. But the timeline and terms have changed. That's insane, Lucas said. His voice was rising. She's your daughter. You can't just... I can do whatever I want with my own assets. That's how ownership works. Margaret pushed through the group. Quinn, what are you doing? This is completely inappropriate. What's inappropriate is assuming I'm wasted space, I said quietly. What's inappropriate is laughing when someone says it publicly. What's inappropriate is deciding I'm useful only when you want something. Jenna's eyes were filling with tears. I didn't mean... Dad, I wasn't laughing at you. You were just going along with it. I know, that's the problem. Lucas's face was red now. You're being petty. You're punishing her for one joke. That's pathetic. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm choosing how to live my life. If that bothers you, that's your problem, not mine. Someone near the back of the circle whispered something. Another person shifted uncomfortably. You're going to regret this, Lucas said. Family doesn't work this way. You don't just walk away. I've spent 54 years learning how things work. I don't need lessons from someone who thinks success is the same as value. I set down my champagne glass. It made a small sound against the table. The trust is managed by a professional fiduciary. If Jenna wants to know the specific conditions for access, she can contact Evan Calder. His information is the same as always. As for the consortium, I wish you all the best. I'm sure you'll find someone else to leverage. I turned toward the door. Dad, wait, Jenna said. Her voice cracked. I stopped. I looked at her. You're an adult, Jenna. You made choices. I'm making mine. But I'm your daughter. Yes, you are. And I hope someday you understand that respect isn't optional, that boundaries matter, that silence isn't the same as weakness. I walked to the door. Nobody tried to stop me. Behind me, I heard Lucas's voice. Let him go. He's just bitter. He'll come around. I pressed the elevator button. He has nowhere else to go, Lucas continued. No other family. He'll realize how stupid this is and come crawling back. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside and pressed the button for the lobby. As the doors closed, I saw Jenna standing in the middle of the room. Her face was streaked with tears. Margaret stood beside her, one hand on her shoulder. Lucas was talking to his business partners, already moving on. The elevator descended smoothly. 14 floors, 13, 12. At the ground floor, the doors opened. I walked through the lobby and out onto the street. The night air was cold and clean. Stars were visible between the buildings. I got in my car and drove home without looking back. The house was dark when I arrived. I didn't turn on the lights. I sat in my office with the curtains open. Moonlight painted everything silver and black. My phone started buzzing within 10 minutes. Margaret, what the hell is wrong with you? Lucas, you just made the biggest mistake of your life. Jenna, Dad, please, can we talk? Please. I turned the phone off. The silence felt different now. Not empty. Full. Like space after an explosion. Like air after a storm. I opened my laptop and pulled up the property listings I'd saved. Bergen, Queenstown, Algarve. I clicked on Bergen. A small apartment overlooking the harbor. Clean lines, minimal furniture, mountains visible from the window. I booked a flight for the following week. Then I opened my email and composed a message to Grant. It's done. I'm leaving next Friday. If you're ever in Norway, look me up. His response came within minutes. Proud of you. Stay in touch. I sent another email to Evan. Everything executed as planned. Leaving the country next week. Make sure all correspondence goes through you. His response was equally quick. Understood. Safe travels. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark. Somewhere across the city, Jenna was probably crying. Margaret was probably raging. Lucas was probably plotting. None of it mattered. For 32 years, I'd built guidance systems that helped machines find their way through darkness. I'd calculated trajectories. I'd corrected errors. I'd ensured that things ended up where they were supposed to be. Now I was doing the same thing for myself. The next morning, I started selling things. Furniture I didn't need, tools I wouldn't use, books I'd read a dozen times. I kept 3 suitcases worth of essentials. Everything else went to estate sales or charity. The house felt lighter each day. My phone stayed off. Messages piled up in voicemail. Emails accumulated unread. On Wednesday, I drove to the bank and confirmed the final transfers. Asher walked me through each account. Everything is consolidated as requested. The offshore structure is active. Your daughter no longer has access to any accounts. Good. She's called 3 times trying to get information. What did you tell her? That we couldn't discuss account details without your authorization. Perfect. He handed me a folder. These are your new account numbers. Memorize them. Don't write them down anywhere public. I spent Wednesday night memorizing strings of numbers. It felt like learning a new language. Thursday, I cleaned out my office. Diplomas went into storage, certifications into a safe deposit box. The photo of 7-year-old Jenna went into my suitcase. I stood in the empty room for a long time. 30 years of work, 30 years of careful planning, all of it invisible to most people, all of it essential. Friday morning arrived clear and cold. My flight left at noon. I locked the house at 10:30. The real estate agent would handle everything else. The property was already listed. She expected offers within a week. I drove to the airport with 3 suitcases and a carry-on bag. At security, I handed over my passport. The agent scanned it and looked at me. Bergen? Yes. Business or pleasure? Neither, just living. She handed back my passport. Safe travels. I walked through security, through the terminal, to the gate. The plane was a wide-body jet. Modern, quiet. I had a window seat. I watched the ground crew load luggage. I watched other passengers find their seats. I watched the city beyond the windows. My phone was still off. It would stay off until I landed. The pilot's voice came through the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. We'll be departing shortly for our 9-hour flight to Bergen. 9 hours. Halfway across the world. The plane pushed back from the gate. We taxied slowly. Through the window, I saw the city stretching to the horizon. Somewhere down there, Jenna was probably trying to call. Margaret was probably strategizing. Lucas was probably dismissing everything as a temporary tantrum. The engines roared. The plane accelerated down the runway. We lifted off smoothly. The ground fell away. The city became small, then smaller. Then it disappeared completely below the clouds. I closed my eyes and let the engine noise wash over me. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt completely at peace. Bergen appeared through the clouds like something out of a painting. Mountains, water, wooden houses painted red and yellow and white. The plane descended over fjords so blue they looked artificial. We landed smoothly. I collected my luggage and went through customs. Purpose of visit? The agent asked. Residency. He stamped my passport and waved me through. The city was exactly as the photos promised. Clean, orderly, quiet. People walked purposefully without rushing. Nobody shouted, nobody shoved. My apartment was in Nordnes near the harbor. 3rd floor, 2 rooms, furniture included. The landlord, a woman named Ingrid who spoke perfect English, met me with the keys. The building is quiet, she said. Mostly professionals, some students. Heat and water are included. Trash is collected Tuesdays and Fridays. Thank you. There's a market 2 blocks north, pharmacy 1 block south. The bus stop is right outside if you need it. She left. I stood in the middle of the empty living room. The apartment smelled like wood polish and salt air. Through the window, I could see the harbor. Boats moved slowly across the water. Seagulls circled overhead. I unpacked methodically. Clothes in the closet. Toiletries in the bathroom. Books on the shelf. The photo of 7-year-old Jenna went on the small table beside the window. When everything was organized, I turned my phone on. 143 messages. I scrolled through without reading most of them. Jenna, Margaret, Lucas, unknown numbers, voicemails, texts, emails. I deleted everything except 3, 1 from Grant. Let me know when you land. 1 from Evan. Yeah, Jenna contacted me. I explained the trust conditions. She didn't take it well. 1 from an unknown number. Dad, please, I'm sorry. Can we talk? I miss you. I responded to Grant. Landed safely. Bergen is perfect. I responded to Evan. Understood. Hold the line. I didn't respond to the unknown number. I knew it was Jenna. The first week passed in a blur of administrative tasks. Bank account setup, residency registration, medical enrollment. Each office was efficient and impersonal. Nobody cared where I came from or why I was there. I bought a bicycle. I rode along the waterfront every morning. The air tasted like salt and pine. Mountains framed everything. The light changed constantly. Gray, then silver, then gold. I found a coffee shop near Bryggen. The owner, a man named Eric, made perfect espresso and spoke minimal English. We communicated mostly through nods and gestures. It was exactly what I needed. The second week, my phone rang. Margaret. I answered. Hello. Quinn? Her voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk. We're talking. In person. You need to come back. No. Jenna is devastated. She's barely eating. She cries every day. You're her father. You can't just abandon her. I didn't abandon her. I relocated. Don't play semantics with me. You know what this is doing to her. Yes, I do. Just like I know what the wedding did to me. That was one stupid joke. It was a pattern. The joke was just the part everyone heard. Margaret was quiet for a moment. Lucas apologized. Lucas apologized because he thought I had money he could access, not because he respected me. You're being impossible. I'm being clear. There's a difference. What do you want, Quinn? An apology, a promise. What would it take for you to come home? This is home now. That's not what I mean. I know what you mean, and the answer is nothing. There's nothing that would make me come back. This isn't a negotiation. So you're just done? After 27 years of being her father, you're just done? I'm not done being her father. I'm done being treated like I don't matter. Margaret's voice broke. She's my daughter too. I can't stand seeing her like this. Then help her understand why respect matters. Help her see that actions have consequences. That's what parents do. You're punishing her. I'm teaching her. There's a difference. I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. I turned it off. That afternoon, I received an email from Evan. Lucas hired an attorney. They're exploring legal options to challenge the trust. I've reviewed everything. They have no standing. The documents are airtight. But expect some noise, I replied. Let them make noise. Change nothing. The third week, I started exploring the city properly. I took buses to neighborhoods I didn't know. I hiked trails in the mountains. I sat in parks watching people who had no idea who I was or what I'd left behind. Nobody here knew about Lucas. Nobody knew about the wedding. Nobody cared. I was just another man in his 50s living quietly in a foreign city. It felt like freedom. On Friday evening, I was sitting in my apartment reading when my phone buzzed. A new number. The text said, Dad, it's me. I borrowed a friend's phone. Please don't ignore this. I need to understand. What conditions do I have to meet? Evan won't tell me specifics, just that it's time-based and behavioral. What does that even mean? Please, I'm your daughter. Doesn't that count for something? I stared at the message for 10 minutes. Then I typed, It counts for everything. That's why this matters. When you're ready to understand why respect isn't negotiable, we'll talk. Until then, the conditions stand. I hit send before I could reconsider. Her response came within seconds. That's not fair. I can't fix something if I don't know what I did wrong. I typed, You laughed when someone called me wasted space. You agreed when Lucas said I was irrelevant. You called me useful only when you wanted money. If you don't understand why that's wrong, time won't help. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally. I was just going along with the moment. I didn't mean it personally. I replied, That's worse. It means you agreed with him without even thinking about it. No response after that. I set the phone down and looked out the window. The harbor was dark. Lights from boats reflected on the water. Somewhere a bell rang, then silence. Winter settled over Bergen like a blanket. The days shortened. Rain became constant. But the city adapted seamlessly. People kept moving, kept working, kept living. I fell into a routine, morning coffee at Eric's Cafe, afternoons reading or exploring, evenings cooking simple meals in my small kitchen. I didn't make friends, didn't seek company, but I wasn't lonely. Solitude felt different here, intentional, chosen. Messages from home slowed to a trickle. Jenna sent occasional texts, always some variation of the same theme. I'm sorry. Please talk to me. I miss you. I responded rarely. When I did, it was brief. Time will help. Be patient. Margaret stopped calling entirely. I assumed she'd moved on to other problems. Lucas went silent. Evan reported that the legal challenge had been dropped. No standing, no case. He's redirecting energy elsewhere, Evan wrote. Probably realized you weren't bluffing. Grant sent occasional emails, updates about mutual colleagues, aerospace industry news. Nothing deep, just enough to maintain connection. In December, I received a physical letter, forwarded by my real estate agent. The envelope was cream-colored, expensive. Inside was a card with embossed lettering. Quinn, we're hosting a holiday celebration, small group, just family and close friends. We'd love to see you. Please consider coming home, even just for a few days. Love, Jenna. I set the card on my table. It sat there for a week. Every time I walked past, I saw it. Finally, I wrote a response. Brief, clear. Thank you for the invitation. I won't be attending. I hope you have a lovely celebration. K. I mailed it from the post office downtown. The clerk weighed it and stamped it without comment. Christmas came and went. Bergen transformed into something from a fairy tale. Lights everywhere, market stalls selling hot drinks and pastries, people bundled in wool coats and scarves. I walked through it all like a ghost, present but separate. On Christmas Eve, I sat in my apartment with a glass of wine. My phone buzzed once. Jenna. Merry Christmas, Dad. I love you. I hope you're okay. I didn't respond. New Year arrived cold and clear. Fireworks lit up the harbor at midnight. I watched from my window. The explosions reflected on the water, colors blooming and fading. When silence returned, I went to bed. January brought deeper cold. Snow appeared on the mountains. The fjords turned steely gray. I started writing. Nothing formal, just thoughts. Observations, things I'd learned about respect and boundaries and the cost of silence. I didn't know what I'd do with the words. Maybe nothing. Maybe they were just for me. One morning in late January, Eric greeted me with a newspaper. He pointed at an article, a photo of Lucas shaking hands with someone important. You know him? Eric asked in broken English. I glanced at the photo. Lucas looked exactly the same. Perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect confidence. Used to, I said. Eric nodded. He looks like, how do you say, all shine, no substance. I smiled. Exactly. In February, the days started getting longer, imperceptibly at first, then noticeably, light returning. My phone rang one afternoon, unknown number, different country code. I answered. Hello. Mr. Oren? A woman's voice. Professional, polite. Yes. My name is Vera Klein. I'm a mediator. I've been asked to facilitate a conversation between you and your daughter. Asked by whom? By Jenna. She feels that direct communication has broken down. She's hoping a neutral third party might help. I'm not interested in mediation. Mr. Oren, I understand you've set boundaries. I respect that. But your daughter is willing to meet any conditions you specify. She just wants to understand what those conditions are. The conditions are already clear. Evan Calder has the documentation. She says the documentation is vague, time-based and behavioral, but no specific metrics. That's intentional. Vera was quiet for a moment. May I ask what you hope to achieve? I hope she learns to value respect over convenience, to understand that relationships require effort, not just proximity. And you believe distance will teach that? I believe consequences teach that. Distance is just one consequence. I see. Papers rustled in the background. Would you be willing to speak with her directly? Just once? On the phone? Not yet. When? I'll know when the time is right. That's very open-ended, Mr. Oren. Yes, it is. Vera sighed. All right. I'll relay your position. If you change your mind, please contact me. My number is... I won't change my mind, but thank you for calling. I hung up. That evening, I received an email from Evan. Jenna's trying every angle. Mediators, attorneys, even contacted some of your former colleagues asking if they could intervene. She's desperate. Just wanted you to know, I replied. Note received, change nothing. March brought rain. Constant, steady, cold. The mountains disappeared behind gray curtains. But the rain felt cleansing. Necessary. I started hiking more aggressively. Long trails through forests and along ridges. Hours alone with nothing but wind and birds and my own breathing. Physical exhaustion felt good. Clean. Simple. One afternoon, I reached a summit. The clouds parted briefly. Below, Bergen sprawled across islands and peninsulas. Beyond, the North Sea stretched to infinity. I stood there until the cold drove me back down. Spring arrived in April, sudden and complete. One day was gray and cold, the next, flowers bloomed everywhere. Trees exploded with green, the air warmed. People emerged from winter like survivors, cafes filled, parks crowded. The city buzzed with energy. I sat in Eric's cafe on a Saturday morning. The door was open. Sun streamed across the floor. The espresso machine hissed and gurgled. Someone laughed at a nearby table. A child ran past the window chasing a dog. My phone buzzed. Grant. Quinn, how are you? Good. You? Same. Listen, I'm in Oslo for a conference next week. Thought I'd take the train to Bergen, spend a day, buy you dinner. I'd like that. Wednesday work? Wednesday's fine. See you then. I spent the rest of the weekend exploring neighborhoods I'd avoided during winter. Narrow streets that wound upward into residential hills, hidden staircases between buildings, small parks where old men played chess and mothers pushed strollers. Bergen revealed itself slowly, layer by layer. Each walk uncovered something new. A bakery, a bookstore, a view I hadn't seen before. Monday, I volunteered at the Maritime Museum. Astrid had me cataloging navigation instruments from the 18th century. Sextants, compasses, tools sailors used to find their way across oceans without satellites or computers. These saved lives, Astrid said, holding up a brass sextant. Men trusted these with everything. They still do, I said. The tools change. The principle doesn't. She smiled. You understand something most people miss. Technology advances. Human nature doesn't. Tuesday evening, I cooked dinner in my small kitchen, fresh salmon from the market, roasted vegetables, bread still warm from the bakery. I ate slowly, watching the harbor through my window. Boats moved in patterns I'd learned to recognize. Ferries, fishing vessels, pleasure craft. Each had its rhythm. Wednesday arrived clear and bright. I met Grant at the station. He stepped off the train wearing jeans and a windbreaker. His beard was fuller, more gray. We shook hands and walked toward the waterfront. Bergen suits you, Grant said. You look different, lighter. I feel different. How so? Like I'm carrying less. Like I put something down and forgot to pick it back up. That's called freedom. Maybe. We found a restaurant overlooking the harbor. Wood tables, fresh fish, local beer. Grant ordered in Norwegian. The waitress smiled and responded in kind. How long have you been learning? I asked. I haven't. I just memorized a few phrases. People appreciate the effort. We ate slowly, talked about aerospace, industry changes, retired colleagues, safe topics. Grant told me about a satellite launch that went perfectly, about a colleague who'd retired and bought a vineyard, about technology advancing faster than anyone predicted. The algorithms you wrote 20 years ago, he said. They're still running, still working. Nobody's improved them. Someone will eventually. Maybe. But you built something that lasted. That matters. Finally, Grant set down his fork. Have you talked to Jenna? No. Margaret? Once. Briefly, months ago. How long are you planning to stay here? Indefinitely. Grant nodded. You've earned that right. I know. But you also know she's suffering. I looked at him. Yes. Does that matter to you? Of course it matters. It's supposed to matter. That's how lessons work. What lesson are you teaching? That respect isn't optional. That family doesn't erase consequences. That love requires effort, not just biology. Those are hard lessons. They're necessary lessons. Grant drank his beer, watched a ferry cross the harbor. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just asking if you've considered when enough is enough. Have you considered that maybe there is no enough? That maybe some distances need to be permanent? Is that what you want? I looked out at the harbor. Boats moved slowly. People walked along the pier. Life continued regardless of my answer. I don't know yet, I said finally. I'm figuring it out. Fair enough? We finished dinner, walked along the waterfront. The sun set slowly, painting everything gold and red. Street musicians played near Bryggen. Tourists took photos. Couples held hands. Grant stopped near a bench. You know what I respect most about this? What? You're not angry anymore. You're just clear. That's rare. Most people carry anger until it turns toxic. You processed it and moved on. I wouldn't say I've moved on. Then what would you call it? Moving forward, there's a difference. At the station, Grant turned to me. Whatever you decide, you have my support. You always have. I know, thank you. He boarded the train. I watched it pull away. That night, I sat on my balcony with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders. Stars appeared one by one. Orion, Cassiopeia, the same constellations I'd seen from my old porch, but they looked different here, brighter, clearer. My phone buzzed. Jenna. Dad, it's been 6 months. 6 months. Please. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to change. But I need you to tell me what you need from me. Please. I read the message 3 times. Then I typed, I need you to understand why what happened matters. Not because I told you, because you figured it out yourself. When that happens, we'll talk. Her response was immediate. How will you know when I've figured it out? I smiled slightly. I'll know. Be patient. No response after that. The museum became a second home. I learned the collection intimately, knew which artifacts needed repair, which documents needed translation, which exhibits attracted the most attention. Astrid taught me Norwegian phrases, practical ones. Versa snill. Tusen tak. Unskilled meg. Please. Thank you. Excuse me. I practiced with Eric at the cafe, with Ingrid when I paid rent, with strangers at the market. The language opened doors. People relaxed when I tried, smiled more, offered directions without being asked. June arrived. Summer solstice approached. The sun barely set. Twilight lasted for hours. I hiked to a mountain lake and stayed until midnight. The water reflected the sky, pink and purple and gold. Birds sang even though darkness never came. I understood why people lived here, why they stayed. The land taught patience, humility, respect for time and distance and the natural order of things. My phone rarely buzzed now. Jenna had stopped sending daily messages, maybe weekly, sometimes less. I didn't know if that meant she'd given up or moved on or finally started understanding, but I knew I wasn't ready to find out yet. One evening in late June, I walked along the waterfront after the museum closed. The air smelled like salt and grilled fish. Music drifted from outdoor restaurants. People sat on benches eating ice cream and watching the water. A group of teenagers laughed near a fountain. A couple kissed under a streetlight. An old man fed seagulls from a paper bag. Life happening, simple, uncomplicated. I stopped at a viewpoint overlooking the harbor. The city spread below me, mountains behind, water ahead. For the first time in months, I thought about the wedding, about Lucas's toast, about Jenna's laughter. It felt distant now, like something that happened to someone else. The anger had burned away. What remained was clarity. I'd made the right choice, not because it felt good, because it was necessary. My phone buzzed. An email from Evan. Jenna stopped contacting me 2 months ago. Her attorney also went quiet. Lucas's legal team hasn't made any moves since January. The trust remains untouched and locked. I assume you're aware her access won't begin for another 4 years minimum. Just wanted to confirm that's still your intention. I replied immediately. Confirmed, though no changes. Another email arrived later that night, from Grant. Saw an interesting article. Lucas's development company hit some turbulence. A few projects fell through. Investors pulled back. Nothing catastrophic, but his reputation took a hit. Thought you'd want to know. I read it twice. Felt nothing. Lucas's problems weren't my concern. July brought tourists. Bergen filled with visitors speaking dozens of languages. The peace I'd found became harder to maintain. I retreated to less popular trails, quieter cafes, early mornings and late evenings. But the tourists reminded me of something important. The world kept turning. People kept moving. Life continued with or without my participation. I wasn't hiding. I was choosing. There was a difference. August came hot and dry. The mountains turned brown. Fires burned in the distance. Smoke drifted across the city some mornings. I spent more time in the museum. Astrid gave me a key. I came early, stayed late, lost myself in centuries-old maps and navigation tools. One evening, as I was locking up, she stopped me. Quinn, you've been here almost a year now. Yes? And in that year, you've never mentioned family, friends, anyone back home. There's nothing to mention. Everyone has something. I looked at her. She was 73, white hair, sharp eyes, a face that had seen too much to be fooled by polite deflection. I had a daughter, I said quietly. She made choices. I made different ones. We're both living with the consequences. Do you miss her? Every day. Then why stay away? Because missing someone isn't the same as accepting their behavior. Love doesn't mean surrender. Astrid nodded slowly. My son and I didn't speak for 5 years once. He thought I was controlling. I thought he was irresponsible. We were both right, and we were both wrong. How did it end? He called, said he finally understood what I'd been trying to teach him, that boundaries weren't rejection, that love could look like distance. What did you say? I said, I'm glad you figured it out. Now let's have dinner. She patted my shoulder and walked away. I stood in the empty museum for a long time. September arrived cooler. Leaves started changing. The tourists thinned out. Bergen returned to its quieter self. My lease was up for renewal. Ingrid asked if I wanted to stay another year. Yes, I said without hesitation. You like it here? I do. Good. You're a quiet tenant. I appreciate that. I signed the papers. Another year committed. Another year away. That evening, my phone rang. A number I recognized. Jenna. I stared at it for 4 rings. Then I answered. Hello? Silence. Then, Dad. Her voice was different. Older somehow, steadier. Hello, Jenna. I wasn't sure you'd answer. I wasn't sure either. She breathed in, out. I've been thinking, for months now, about what you said, about respect and consequences and earning things. I waited. And I think I understand now. Not because someone explained it, because I lived it. What happened? Lucas changed after you left. He got meaner, more dismissive. Not just to me, to everyone, clients, partners, friends. He burned a lot of bridges. I'm sorry to hear that. Some of those bridges were mine too. People who respected me stopped calling. Opportunities disappeared, and I realized I'd been so focused on supporting him that I'd forgotten to think about who I was supporting. And I remembered the wedding, how easily I laughed, how automatically I agreed with him. I didn't even question whether he was right. I just went along. She was crying now, quietly. I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm sorry I laughed. I'm sorry I didn't defend you. I'm sorry I treated you like you didn't matter. I closed my eyes. Thank you. Can you forgive me? I already have. Then why are you still there? Why won't you come home? Because forgiveness doesn't mean everything goes back to how it was. You hurt me, Jenna, deeply, and forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. So what happens now? Do I just wait forever? No. You keep living your life. You keep learning. You keep growing. And when I decide the time is right, I'll let you know. But that could be years. Yes, it could be. That's not fair. I smiled slightly. Life rarely is. You're learning that now. I learned it at your wedding. She was quiet for a long moment. Can I at least call you sometimes, just to talk? I thought about Astrid's story, about 5 years of silence, about understanding that finally arrived. Yes, I said. You can call. Will you ever come back? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But that's my choice to make, not yours. I love you, Dad. I love you too, Jenna. That's why this matters. I hung up before she could respond. The apartment was quiet. Through the window, the harbor reflected the last light of sunset, orange and purple and gold. My phone stayed silent in my hand. I stood there feeling the weight of the conversation settle. Not regret, not doubt, just clarity. I'd drawn the line, I'd held it, and I'd proven something Lucas never understood. Respect isn't negotiable. Distance isn't weakness. And a quiet man who knows his worth is more powerful than a loud one who never earned his. I set the phone on the table and walked to the window. Below, the city moved through its evening rhythm, boats returning to harbor, lights flickering on, people heading home. I'd built guidance systems for 32 years, taught machines to navigate darkness, to find their way when everything else failed. Now I'd done the same for myself. And for the first time in over a year, I felt completely, absolutely victorious.